The following program is rated G. It is suitable for all audiences.
Imagine yourself in the most fabulous building in the world. Now, take away the lighting, heating, and ventilation. The lifts and escalators, acoustics, plumbing, power supply and energy management systems, the security and safety systems, and you are left with a cold, dark, and empty shell. Everything into the building which makes it safe and comfortable to be in comes under the title Building Services. A building must do what it was designed to do, be an environment where people can live, work, and achieve. Building services are what makes a building come to life. In constructing a house or any infrastructure, we don't only focus on the architectural and structural part of it, but we also look into other aspects such as electrical, mechanical, and plumbing. But for this report, we're going to be focusing on the electrical part of construction, specifically on the security, lighting, and communication. So first, let's talk about the types of electrical fixtures. The first type is what you call the track light. So the track light are mainly used to give emphasis on certain parts of your house or to give highlights on certain objects in your house. And these track lights are mainly made up of LED as well as incandescent lights. And the second one is what you call the recessed lights. So the recessed lights are mainly sockets that are buried underneath the ceiling. And as you can observe, this portion right here, up here, is going to be buried in the ceiling, and only this part is going to be exposed to give your ceiling a more elegant look. The third type of lighting is what we call the under cabinet light. So mainly these under cabinet lights are just recessed lights, but instead of being placed on the ceiling, these are placed under the cabinet to give lighting on your tables or your countertops. The fourth type is what you call the chandelier. So unfortunately, I don't have any chandelier right here because it's very big and it's very expensive. But if you want to check out some chandelier, those very big lightings on hotels or big lobbies, those are made up of chandeliers, and this is most probably the most expensive type of lighting materials. So the fifth type is what you call the sconce lighting, and these lightings are not intended to light up bigger areas because it is mainly used to provide dimmer lightings on specific part of your houses, and this could even be installed in rooms so that you can have a dimmer lighting once you are. So the next type is what you call the pendant lights, and these lighting materials are just light bulbs that are enclosed in decorative materials, and these are used to have lightings on lower parts of your house or to provide lightings on your kitchens or living areas, as well as to provide beautification purposes. Now the next one is what you call the cove lights. So cove lights are mainly lighting materials made up of LED lights, and this would allow your ceiling to have a floating effect, and this is mainly used for aesthetic purposes. Now let's move on to the summary of these materials as to how are these installed. So as you can observe in the picture, this is a layout as to how the different types of lighting fixtures are installed in the different parts of your house. So now let's move on to the other electrical fixtures, and first is we have the outlet gang. So the outlet gang is just mainly a socket wherein you can plug in your devices or your appliances. So these are made up of one-way, two-way, or three-way outlet gangs. Now the second one is what you call the switch gang. So if we have the socket gang, we also have the switch gang, which allows you to turn on or off your lighting or other appliances that you wish to have a switch. Now the third one is what you call the outlet and switch, which is just a combination of both the outlet and the switch gang. Now one of the most important part of your house, especially if your house is made up of two-story or more, is what you call the three-way outlets. So three-way outlets provide more controls of your lighting materials without going from one area to another. So for example, you are on the ground floor and you wish to turn your light on, you don't have to go to the second floor to switch the light on, or if you're on the second floor, you don't have to move down to the ground floor just to be able to turn your switch on. So this would allow you homeowners to have more controls on your lighting without traveling much to specific areas. Now the last one is what you call the dimmer. So basically dimmers are not used in common houses, but the main function of dimmers is to provide control on the lighting of your houses. If you wanted to make it dimmer or if you wanted to make it brighter, then this is a perfect control for your lighting material. So now let's move on to the other types of lighting sources. The first type of lighting sources is we have the incandescent light. So incandescent lights are very common types of light bulbs that are installed in houses. And if you can observe the recessed lighting we have earlier, is that this is the common type of bulb that is installed underneath. And this light bulb also varies from different wattages, started from 5, 10, 15, so on and so forth. Now the second one is what you call the fluorescent lighting. Compared to the incandescent lighting, fluorescent lightings are made up of longer tubes, and these tubes allow you to have a larger area to be covered when it comes to lighting. Now fluorescent lightings are also among the common type of bulbs used in buildings, especially in hospitals, schools, because it provides larger scale when it comes to lighting an area. The third type of lighting source is what you call the halogen light. So halogen lights are mainly used or installed in areas that have bigger spaces, because halogen lights, from the name itself, halogen, it is made up of inert gases, and thus when it reacts, it provides a brighter light, and that's why it's not recommended in areas that have smaller space, because it would be very bright and it is not going to be good for the eyes. The last type of lighting source is what you call the natural lighting. So from the name itself, natural, it doesn't require any electricity to provide light. So this is very advantageous, because in the long run, you don't have to pay high electric bill because of using light bulbs. But what is also disadvantageous for this type of lighting source is that it's going to cost you more when it comes to installation, because you're going to be specified a specific glass that's going to be able to withstand the heat outside your house, as well as other factors. Now I will be giving the floor to our next reporter, Jel Ribbon, Glorious Jerusalem. That's all for me. Bye.
Thank you, Hez. So, hi guys. Today I'll be discussing about another type of electrical fixtures, which specifically tackles about electrical receptacles, electrical switches, and electrical wires. So, let's start with electrical receptacles. So, basically, electrical receptacles are just electrical outlets. Ito ang ilhan. In theory, they can be referred to as the plugs or the socket itself. Basically, when we talk about electrical receptacles, they are just points where a device can be connected to a power source. So, naka-plug, naka-outlet, then if mo siyang isaksak, of course, you can get electricity. According to the International Electrotechnical Commission, or the IEC, there are 14 types of electrical receptacles that is used worldwide. However, today, we're just going to talk about the types na common here sa Philippines. So the first and the most common type is the type A na outlet. So I think you can notice nga the type A outlet is kanang common kayo sa household, labaw na sa mga karaan nga balay. So it is also referred to as parallel outlets. So if you can notice here, ang iyahang sockets o ang iyahang kanang plugs na siya yung mga parallel na holes. Not compatible with other plugs. Kaya if you can see katong mga other plugs such as the type B and type C, which later on natong i-discuss, dili siya parallel ang iyang holes, or na siya extra nga pin, which is the ground pin. Another disadvantage sa aning outlet is that it's quite dangerous, because first, ang yung mga prongs is not insulated. So, makita na mo diri, pure siya. Wala siya insulation sa half. And then, wala siya ground wire. So, later on, we will try to kanang explain the advantages of having a ground wire and one of its safety features. For now, this is the type A na outlet. Next is the type B, which just pretty similar lang sa type A. However, nasa extra na pin, the third pin, which we refer as the grounding pin. So, by this, it is less dangerous than the type A outlet. However, there's still minimal risk kay ang ihang duha ka prongs here, or let's say apil ang ground pin, dili gyapon siya insulated. So, makabantay mo if kanang magsaksak mo og charger dayon, inyo siyang tangtangon, or halfway pa lang gani mo nagsaksak na siya, murag gamay nga spark. So, muna siya, if duol kayo mong finger sa plug, so, posible ka nga makurentihan. So, usa na siya sa mga dangers. ani nga outlet. It is compatible with type A nga plug. So, ang type A nga plug pwede sa type B nga socket. So, di ba when we talk about outlets, it refers to the plug and the socket as in general, so in theory. So, pwede na to magamit ang type A nga plug sa type B nga socket. Kaya as you can see, same sila, parallel. However, the difference is the grounding pin. Since wala may grounding pin ang type A, pwede siya masud sa type B. Commonly used in laptops and chargers, which is true. Tinod man yata, I think. Next is the type C outlet, which is very common in Europe. That's why it is also known as the Euro plug. Unlike the type A and type B, you can see here nga ang yung prongs na siya insulator. So wala siya atong risk nga katubitong if halfway ka magsaksak or magtangtang, more less ang yung production of unstable nga charges tungod ani. However, this socket is banned. Ang socket niya dili ang plug. Ang socket niya is banned in some European countries tungod kay wala siya grounding pin or wala siya grounding what do you call this? Wala siya grounding a slot. Grounding a slot. So the plug is compatible with type E and type F nga sockets because type E and type F nga sockets are just type C outlets with grounding nga pins. Next is the universal outlet. So from the word itself, it's universal, it's very versatile, it's a multi-purpose type of outlet. It is compatible with plug types A, B, C, and G. Another nice pod nga feature aning universal nga outlet is na siya ground, diba na siya grounder sa yung socket. So it adds the safety factor. So if imong plug is insulated and imong gamiton is ang universal nga outlet, then much better. It's safer. So if you notice ari sa Philippines, ginagamit na to nga mga plugs and sockets kay marag dili ka siya ginana ka safety, no? So that's why as feature engineers, I think mas better nga marag mag-start sa tuwa nga atog yung ipa-implement ang safety. So one takeaway lang sa baning universal nga outlet is that usahay since universal siya, dili kayo haom ang mga plugs nga isaksak sa iya. So it can have kanang less sturdy nga grip. So siguro design issues pero more or less I think okay ra ang universal nga outlet. So another important concept that we need to understand is the safety feature that is offered by grounding. So first, makita niyo dito sa right side na 2-pronged and the 3-pronged. So the prong is di katong mga pins nga nasa plugs. So if you can see here sa 2-pronged natay hot o neutral nga slots. So the hot nga slot is just where the kanang electricity from the power source mo pass through dayon sa device, and then the neutral is from the device, the used electricity will go back to the power source. If you can see here sa 3-pronged natay extra nga slot which is for grounding. Now, why grounding is very important? Sometimes man good dili ginato malikayan due to kanang the quality of the material nga ginagamit, usay mag-wear off ang kanang mga insulators nga ginagamit sa mga wires. So what happens is that na leak of charges. Now if ang imong gigamit nga socket is ang kaning 2-pronged, nya na leak of charges, of course ang kaning mga leak padulong siya sa socket, padulong siya sa plug, padulong siya sa devices. So if magunitan nimo ang mga devices nga na leak of charges, of course makurentihan ka. However, with grounding, it's like grounding acts as the dampers of this kaning mga nasalaag na charges. So instead nga ang mga unstable nga charges padulong siya sa imong devices, sa imong sockets, it will be directed towards the ground, which makes your household a lot safer. So mo na siya, importante kayo ang concept sa grounding. So next topic is about electrical switches. So electrical switches, we commonly refer them as light switches, although dili lang gid siya para lang sa light, pero commonly ginatawag nato siya as light nga switches. It is used to control the path of current in an electrical circuit, whether it is to connect or disconnect the flow of electricity from the power source to the device and then vice versa. So that is the main function of electrical switch. Now, there are many ways we can classify electrical switches, but for our discussion today, we'll classify them in accordance to their function. And the commonly used switches in accordance with their function are the single pole and the three-way switch. First is the single pole switch. So this is the type of switch we used in our simple circuit projects, so if you can remember in elementary days. It is the simplest type of switch where it has two terminals, you can see, and one ground terminal, so three terminals all in all. So as you can see here, this is the basic setup of our single pole switch lighting in an electrical circuit. So kaning mga black nga wires, these are the hot wires. This is where from the power source the current will flow. However, the circuit is still considered open. So the electricity from here cannot travel towards the device since gi-open ato ang switch or gi-open ato ang circuit. Now, ato ang i-try o close ang switch. So upon closing, we connected these kaning black wire and this black wire, allowing a complete nga electrical flow sa atong circuit. So basically, this is the function of a single pole switch. Next is the three-way switch. So compared sa single pole, complicated siya gamay. So it allows users to control an electrical device from two different locations. So bale natay duha ka switch nga gamiton ani. Dayon mag-alternate sila o kanang on and off. That is why wala tay on and off markings since the flow of current varies as the two switches are used. So mag-alternate man ang on and off. So impractical kasi if magbutang ta. So very common in stairways and hallways. But let's try to analyze the anatomy of a three-way switch. Dire kuwang siya og grounding. So ang naara nato dire is ang hot ug ang neutral. Pero idealization nga walay leak of electrical charges. Mo siyang setup. Electricity travels from the power source and then moagi ari nga terminal which is considered hot. Ang electric current kay naadto siya sa first switch until sa second switch. However, the circuit is still considered open since dili connected ang L2 there is a common in order para ma-open or ma-close rather ang circuit since it is open. We'll try to use the second switch and by this musiga ng light bulb. So if we want to close the switch, we can turn it off using the first switch. So in order to make the circuit close and turn on the light bulb, it's either atuang i-move ni ang kaning sa first switch or ang second switch ang atong i-move na sub. So that is why ang yang on and off is alternating and it depends upon the position of the switches. I think that's just how three-way switches work. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to electrical wires. So I think all of us are very familiar with electrical wires. They are conductors that is used to transmit electricity from a power source. So from these power source padulong sa atong outlets sa atong mga households, and then from these mga outlets padulong sa atong mga electrical devices. The most common type of material that is used is copper and the aluminum. However, due to its kanang high conductivity and flexibility, mas ginagamit ang copper while also being kanang affordable sab siya on the other hand. So very economic. That's why copper is commonly used sa mga electrical wirings. Since ginagamit good always ang electrical wirings in an electrical plan, electrical system, we should understand some of its kanang important notations or labels for us to know what type of wire that we should use for or sa atong electrical system for a specific purpose. So first that we should understand is the wire lettering based on its insulation cover. So here, as you can see from the right side, there are different letters which corresponds to the different types of insulation or resistance that the insulated wire is exhibiting. So, the most common nga ginagamit jud nga wire is ang kaning THHN and kaning THWN. So, THHN, common ka siya sa mga buildings na siya ginagamit. And also, THWN sa kanang mga areas where na ay wet and moisture. For example, the kitchen. So, ginagamit siya kanang sa mga dryers. And other sub is ang kaning XHHN, which exhibits kanang flame resistant. So, it's for kanang very high nga conditions. So, one takeaway lang sa baning XHHN is that it's very expensive. However, in return sub, it's very durable. It's very efficient kay less ang yang maintenance. When we talk about wear off sa yang insulator or sa yang material. Next is, the other thing that we should be familiar about is the designation of its sizes. So, we'll use the AWG or the American Wire Gauge System, which is the common standardized gauge wire system of electrically conductive wires. So, if maka-familiar mo or maka-remember mo sa una, sa discussion ni Sir Marcon, the higher the gauge number, the smaller the physical size of the wire. So, more siya gatong sa mga tie wires nga itong gigamit sa building lock. The higher the gauge number, the mas nipis. So, kato mga 24 nga tie wires, which is isud kay pangitaon. So, we have here the amperage capacity for standard non-metallic cable. So, if you can see sa left side ang gauge number and sa right side ang iyang capacity in terms of amperes. So, gauge 14 has only a capacity of 15 amperes wire, while gauge 2 is kanang capable of carrying 95 amperes. So, the idea behind this is that most common concept nga pwede na to i-compare is kanang water flowing inside the tube. So, if you can imagine, the bigger the diameter of the tube, so mas more ang current flow, mas less ang resistance. Same idea here. So the lesser the gauge number, mas dako yung diameter, so mas more ang flow sa current. So same concept. Itong applied here. We also have here the common applications of common gauge wire sizes. So ang kaning 0.003 gauge, which can carry 200 amperes. Ginagamit siya sa mga service entrance, kada sa mga poste sa kurente. Here we have the gauge 3 and gauge 6, which is also used sa feeder. So feeder, usually ginagamit na siya sa mga high voltage, mga common remember is generators. Ginagamit to feeder para pag-transport sa mga high voltages or high loads. Then we have here 30 amps, which is carried by gauge 10, ginagamit sa itong dryers, sa itong mga washing machines, common appliances, sa ACs na to, air conditionings. And the gauge 14 is kanang for ginagamit sa itong mga suga, sa itong mga projects, sa una. So, masyado na ginagamit. So, it's very important to be familiar with this. Although we are CE, I think it's kanang importance of we have kanang balag little knowledge lang, since we are always dealing with buildings, and of course buildings will always have wirings. So I think it's important for us to understand these things, from the electrical receptacles, from the electrical switches, until the wires na ginagamit to make the electrical system or electrical service of a certain building work and be efficient. So, I think that's pretty much it sa akong report. Let's try to go to the next reporter, which will help us read an electrical plan. I think wala pa siya. I'll try to call.
Hello, so Anne and I will be discussing about building service systems, more specifically on the communication system. So we will cover audio and visual communication equipments, TV antenna systems, sound amplifying systems, telephone and intercommunication systems. So the communication system composes of audio-visual communication equipments. These are namely television units, sound amplifying systems, intercom, and the telephone. So we will be further discussing on these systems in the report. Next. So the first one is the TV antenna system. This system basically functions by amplifying the signals received by the TV antenna through a special cable. Then the signals are then distributed into various wall outlets. The next system is the sound amplifying systems or the public address systems. So these aren't usually typically used in homes, but more of schools or offices. So there are three types of equipment. These are the microphone, the amplifiers, and the loudspeaker. The microphone is the one that picks up the sound and converts it to an alternative electric current. Next is the amplifier, which amplifies and controls the current. Lastly, the loudspeaker is the one that converts the current back into a sound that is much louder than the original sound that entered the microphone. Next, so the telephone and intercommunication systems. The first system we talk about under this system is the intercom system. So these are basically one or more stations, one or more master stations, and several or more remote stations, one of which monitors the front door. The master station is the one that allows selective calling, while the remote stations are the one that does not have that option. So this is what it looks like. So this is what it looked like before, and these are the modern ones now. So this is the one for the apartment buildings. Well, these are the ones typically used in homes. So this is the one that's outside your front door, and then this is the one inside your house. Next. The Private Automatic Branch Exchange, the PABX. This is a system that can handle up to 500 lines and trunks, 4 operator consoles, and over 140 simultaneous conversations, plus full intercom facilities. Before it was a bit tinier, but then now it's cabinet size, so it looks like this, the before and then the after. So features include direct internal and external dialing, call forwarding, distinctive ringing for different features. But there's also features that include paging, executive priority, or personal location, and many more other options. Next is the types of telephone systems. There are 3 types. So the first type is the single line phones. These are the basic average cell phones that can be bought in the appliance stores. These have no extensions, no transferring capabilities, and is the one that's directly hooked up in the jack of your walls. So these are typically found in home offices or businesses that do not need multiple phone lines. It has however, if you want to add more features to your single line phones, you have to contact your local phone company. These features include the call waiting or the 3-way phone call. However, also, if you don't want to use the phone company's voicemail services, you can also purchase your own answering machine to answer your missed calls. Next, these are the small business multiple line phones. So it's for moderate to large phone traffic and works very well for small office use. So it has 2 or more extensions with a digital line hookup, and it also has 2 to 10 ports for voice messages. Next is the large business multiple line calls. So this is for a large business with over 50 employees with a large number of phone calls. It can hold up to hundreds of outside lines with more extensions compared to the small business multiple line phones. However, you need one or more T1 lines to effectively handle the load. Voicemail ports are also more than the one sa small business multiple line phones. Next. So there are two types of analog and digital phone lines. So the analog is known as the plain old telephone services. These are found in homes or small offices. Analog processes voices or audio and converts them to electronic pulses, which then makes a rich and quality sound. So this is what it looks like. This one. So there's four groves with the two middle conductors used to connect to a phone line, while the other two outside conductors are used to connect to the second line. So, however, it is only recommended for up to 15 incoming lines and used for phones without multiple lines or display features. Next is the digital phone line. So this is the one that breaks the signal into binary format, so it's into ones or zeros. It is used for large corporate phone systems. So since it can correct errors in transmission, it offers clarity through a distortion-free conversation. It has more features too compared to the analog. So this is what the digital phone line looks like. So it has 6 to 8 groves, unlike the analog with 4 groves, and is used for phones with multiple lines and digital status indicators. Common digital phone lines are the T1 and the PRI. So the T1 and the PRI are powerful phone lines that acts like a tube, and then it funnels information at a faster rate compared to like the analog phone lines. So the T1 has 24 channels, in which per channel is 64,000 bits per second. It has no color ID data. So on the other hand, the primary rate interface has 23 channels, with one channel dedicated for the automatic number identification. So unlike the T1, it has one channel that's dedicated for looking for ID data. So moving on to Anne for elements of phone installation, phone system hardware, and features. Bye-bye.
I discussed the elements of phone installation. So the first element is the service entrance, and then this is basically just how you connect from the main service line, which is the wires that run outdoors into your building. So you can connect overhead or underground. And the main difference is that with overhead, you can do it with an exposed wire, whereas with the underground, you need to provide a conduit for it to run through, just to keep it safe. And then, regardless of the type of service entrance, you require a protector. This is so that if there's lightning surges, the surge will not damage your all of the circuitry in your home or building. So that is a precautionary measure. And then another element is the main terminal or cabinet or room. So this depends on the need or the necessary function of the telephone installation. If you only have a small requirement, then you can do with just a small cabinet. So this is where your service wire would connect to the rest of the circuitry in your house. And if you have a bigger requirement, like for companies, then you would need a much larger size. So typically they would use a room. And then those rooms would have specifications like fire resistance ratings that it has to meet and the like. This is because that much equipment will generate heat and there's a risk of a fire. And then for both types, there's also considerations like pest control, because if you have your wires, you could also have rats or other animals that might chew through the wire and damage your connections. So another element is the vertical riser conduits or riser shafts. So this is just a passageway for the wires in the building to go between floors. I'll show it in the picture there. Then there's also splicing cabinets or splicing closets. So the wires from the main terminal cabinet would at this point, the splicing cabinet, they would get spliced with other wires so that it can connect the different rooms along in that same floor. And then there's also floor conduits, which is basically just the wires that would run close to the ground or along the lower area of the wall. So here's a picture of what it would look like. And here you can see, you can't see the service entrance here, but you can see that the wire from the main terminal telephone cabinet, it runs through riser shafts or riser conduits to different floors. So it's the purpose of that. And then from there, it will go to a splicing cabinet. This is the splicing cabinet. These are. And then the splicing cabinet allows it from this main terminal wire. You can distribute the wire along the floor. So this is in the same floor. This is between floors. And then you can see there are also distribution cabinets in some cases. This is so that you don't have to run a very long length of wire. And if there's something damaged, you don't have to replace a very long length, because it's not advisable to just have many exposed splices in your wire. Then here you can see it can be further connected to wall outlets. Then for riser shafts, typically you want it straight so that you require less materials, and the placement would be somewhere in the center so that it's also less material to be distributed. But if you have bigger buildings, then you'll have more riser shafts because you need to run wires through there. Then next we have the phone system hardwares. So there is a PBX server, which is private branch exchange. So this is just a switchboard that is private, so that means it's just for a certain group. So people in your building or it's like a private server basically. And that is what it is. And then there's also the control unit. So the control unit, it's like the brain. This is where everything's connected, and this is how you connect all of the different lines in a building and how you can transfer calls. Without this, you cannot do any of that. It's basically so that you don't have to have so many phone lines for an area. So the type of phone line you would have, analog or digital, as explained by Sam, would depend on the needs. So analog is already okay for smaller businesses or just home use. There's also individual units. So this just refers to the different phones, the actual telephone unit that you will have in different offices. So the school can have one main line, and then the different offices will have their individual units that actually count as extensions. So for somebody within the school, since there's a PBX server, they can connect to the other units through a certain number. And then IP telephony, it's internet protocol telephone. It's basically the server will run through your computer network. And then this is good because it can avoid tolls, which you would encounter when making long distance calls with just a normal telephone line. And so an example of this is Skype, where you can just load credits onto it and it will connect you via internet to somebody else. So the cost of that is actually lesser than if you would have to go through a toll. But the problem with this is it's not that reliable. You won't have the assurance that you'll get all of your calls, especially if you have a lot of systems running on your network. So next we have phone system features. It's actually the last part. So there's many different features that make telephone systems very useful. And then these are usually on telephone, like the handheld ones, not the mobile ones. So you have like a call attendant, which is basically like a robot receptionist because it can take a call and then direct a person accordingly. Like if you were to call a bank for to set up account, the first voice you usually talk to is an automated pre-recording one that will tell you dial 0, dial 1 for this certain need as a call attendant. And that's like the robot version of a receptionist. A receptionist is like a person you could call who can transfer you to other people in the company. So that's actually made possible through a call transfer feature. And this is something that only telephones that are that have their own private servers can have. Like with USC, you can be transferred to different departments or different offices via the call transfer feature. This wouldn't be possible with a mobile phone. This mobile phones have more limited functions. So next we're gonna they're gonna discuss the the security systems. So next we're gonna discuss the security systems. So I will turn you over to the next person. Yeah. There's a pointer, Monday. No.
Good morning, guys. It's me, Louise, and today I'm going to be discussing with you all security services within a building. Yes, so to begin with, what exactly am I about to talk about? Let's find out. Sure. Okay, so within any building, there exist commercial alarm systems that are available in order to protect and safeguard both people and property. So these can be categorized into two categories. So there are two types, yes, fire and security. And then today we will be going over the security section, as the former will be discussed in the future by another group. So now let us move on to the types of security alarms. So keep in mind that in terms of security, a building can be safeguarded through both physical means, such as like a manned guard, security guard, like, at the building's entrance or exits, and then the more sophisticated technological means, which is what I'll be focusing on. So security really begins at the property line of the building with fences, walls, or gates that may or may not be enhanced with electrical alarm systems. So moving within the building, there are several types of sensing devices that can be used to alert whomever it may concern of any threat at any time. So for example, inside there are motion detectors. So these rely on infrared or microwave principles. Next are photoelectric detectors. So these are it's like where there's a beam of light and then your photocell, a beam of light projected between your photocell and like a receiver. So there's a beam of light connecting the two, and then once that beam of light is obstructed or interrupted, the alarm will trip. So this type of system is most commonly used in smoke alarms, which I have pictured. Next, there are electrical contacts. So these are small circuits found within an electrical switch, and they're depending on the position, it's either normally open or normally closed. So once that position is disturbed and put out of place, that's when the circuit will trip and the entire switch will be activated. And these are commonly applied in devices that control like windows and doors that like automatically close and open. So, and then finally, we also have closed circuit TV systems, or CCTV. So these are composed of a system of security cameras and monitors, but I won't be discussing this, as this will be further explained by our next reporter, Clareez. So once again, moving back to the outside measures of security, we have 3 notable systems. So the first one is one that all of us are very familiar with, is the identification card system, or the ID card. So I wonder who that is. These cards allow access into and out of a building and work by either, tapping or swiping. So us at USC, we're just tap. So by either that tapping or swiping, the cards operate through either like magnetic strips, it says here proximity tuned passive circuits. So the closer the card is to the receiver, that's when it will recognize that it's a registered ID card and will allow access. Coded pattern capacitors, infrared optical circuits or masks, or mechanical coded holes arranged in a pattern. The second means of access is through biometric identifications. So that's like the really cool stuff with the fingerprint scanners, retinal scans, so like eye scanners, like signatures, and what else? Like voice prints, so it's like, voice activated. So this type of security is extremely high level, so especially considering that each person has unique physiological aspects that requires very sophisticated technology to recognize. So yes. And then once again, I listed there the closed circuit TV or CCTV system. So now that we've gone over the types, let's move on to what happens next. So say you're trying to break into a building and, you trip one of the alarms. So how does the system respond? So as expected, once something is detected, all alarm systems will emit some kind of sound in order to alert whoever it may concern. So the most commonly used devices are computer alarm monitoring stations. So alarms such as bells, horns, buzzers, just think of the purge.
This is not a test. This is your emergency broadcast system announcing the commencement of the annual purge sanctioned by the U.S. government.
Annunciators such as location identifying like lighted panels that you see like in the movies. TV monitors, again, part of the CCTV system. Speakers, so those are utilized through like, a building's intercom systems or like the public advisory, public announcement systems. And digitized voice messages, so, intruder alert, intruder alert. And then a wireless radio system. So these fall in line with the building's communication system. And then while these alarms sound off, there are a lot of things that happen in the background as well. So let's look at how they're all connected. So when a sensor is activated, a signal is sent from the device to the alarm control panel. And so the system will respond accordingly via warning sounds. So as you can see, there's over here, or can you see this? So these are our different devices that are trying to detect anything. So there's the crime prevention unit, so that's, against intruders. And then there's also the monitoring unit. So that's more of like monitoring fires, fire prevention, fire detection, any other smoke or like gas leakage. That's what these are for. So when these devices are tripped, the device sends a signal to the alarm control panel. And so the signal is there's also a simultaneous signal that's sent to the central monitoring station. So somewhere over here. And so those signals are sent either using an internet or a cellular communicator. So these are monitored 24/7 by trained dispatchers. So at all times, no matter what time, if the alarm is triggered, then somebody will be able to respond right away. So usually there are cases where there are like, false alarms, so it's tripped unintentionally. So I think the responder is given around like 2 minutes first to see if it's a false alarm or not. So once they realize, okay, so this is a real like alert, then they will respond immediately and then contact both the end user, so that's you, and or the local authorities. So they'll send someone your way should you be in any trouble. And then it's also good to note that all activity generated from surveillance, monitoring, and crime prevention are tracked on these security monitoring PCs and are further stored and managed on security data servers. So those logs of, people tapping in and tapping out, all those people that are monitoring, checking like the devices and stuff, any like changes, everything is stored within this security data server because that information is very important. So yes, that is all, and now I will hand it over to the next presenter. Thank you.
Okay, next up, still in security systems, closed circuit television or CCTV is a wired, self-contained television system that allows you to keep an eye on what's going on in and around your business. Having CCTV cameras or even signs that warn about CCTV monitoring in visible places prevents vandalism and burglary, thus ensuring security of the property and safety of the people. A CCTV system may have one or more of the following features: mode, cameras, monitors, and recorders. Mode is somewhat the setting where you can choose various features such as having black and white or colored images, continuous, sequential switch, or time-lapse monitoring, or multiplexed recording, which allows 4 to 32 cameras to be recorded in a single VCR. Next feature, of course, the cameras. It also varies from viewing fixed positions to being able to pan, tilt, and zoom to have a better field of vision. There are also cameras that have thermal attributes, freeze action, and remote controls. You have several basic security camera options to choose from, such as wired security cameras, which use cables to transmit footage and conduct video surveillance, but the signal can weaken when the transmission range exceeds 300 meters. Analog cameras have basic functionality and record images to a digital recorder, which converts the video to a digital format. IP or Internet Protocol cameras carry out the same functions as their analog counterparts, but with vastly greater capabilities. IP cameras boast sharper, higher resolution images and more flexible features like remote zoom and repositioning. They also give you the option to view footage on a web browser, so you can basically view it live from anywhere via a computer or smartphone. Major drawback, they're quite pricey. So next feature, monitors, where you can basically view what's happening, and available options would be single or multiple units, full or split screen, sizes of screen, and resolutions. Lastly, recorders. Video camera recorders and other attributes such as time-lapse recorders, sequential switches, time-date generators, or digital computer-based recording. When a CCTV camera spots something of interest, a recorder ensures you can go back and view it later. You can set up your cameras to record everything they capture, but that takes up a lot of storage space. For this reason, you may want to program your cameras to record only during certain times of the day or when they detect movement. Your video recording options include DVR and NVR. DVRs, or digital video recorders, are the modern replacement for analog recorders that use videotapes. DVRs capture footage from analog cameras in a digital format at the desired resolution and frames per second. When the hard disk gets full, new images will record over the oldest footage first. NVRs, or network video recorders, work similarly to DVRs, but they're compatible with IP cameras. Your cameras and NVR connect via a network switch or router. You can easily access footage on an NVR through a web browser or mobile app. So here you can see a basic CCTV system consists of an electronic camera that converts an optical image into analog signals, a transmission medium, and a monitor to convert the signal back to an image. The signal is stored on tape or compact disc through a video recorder or multiplexer or video printer. Here are some popular types of CCTV cameras: dome, bullet, C-mount, day or night, PTZ, and infrared cameras. The dome camera is one of the most commonly used for indoor and outdoor security and surveillance. The shape of the camera makes it difficult for onlookers to tell which way the camera is facing. This creates an air of uncertainty for potential thieves or vandals approaching from all directions, which can be covered due to its 360-degree rotation. Bullet cameras are cylindrical in shape and highly visible, which acts as a deterrent. They are most commonly placed outdoors, so their casings are made resistant to water, dust, and dirt. Also, they are capable of observing long distances. C-mount CCTV cameras are equipped with detachable lenses that can be switched around to monitor varying distances. C-mount cameras are typically bulky, so like bullet cameras, act as a visible deterrent to criminal activity. Casing can be added for protection. Next, day or night camera. During both daytime and nighttime, they will record clear video images that will not be obscured by differing light conditions. This is achieved through their extra sensitive imaging chips. They can function despite glare, direct sunlight, reflections, and poor lighting. Also, casing protects the camera against the elements for outside surveillance. Next, PTZ. Pan, tilt, and zoom cameras allow the camera to be moved left or right, which is panning, up and down, tilting, and even allow the lens to be zoomed closer or farther. These cameras are used in situations where a live guard or surveillance specialist is there operating the security systems. Infrared cameras have small LEDs surrounding the lens to help pick up moving figures in pitch black. Thermal image cameras can see over long distances up to 300 meters away. They can capture images even in the presence of fog, dust, or smoke, and they record color imagery in the daytime and black and white at nighttime. That would be all. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.